and welcome back to The Look. Everything fashion, beauty, and retail. This is Andrew Bernstein, also known as Dr. Fashion, and I'm with Faith Ferris. Inversa. It's all about lionfish, carp, pythons, lions and tigers and bears, oh my. Invasive species, we've all seen them, certainly in South Florida in the Everglades, and really all around the planet. These species are everywhere. And Inversa is taking a sustainable step forward. They are turning lionfish, carp, and python into natural fibers. Your next bag, your next belt, your next jacket could be from a python, a lionfish, or even carp. Come with us as we talk to the founders of Inversa and look at what they're doing to change the environment, what they're doing with invasive species.
What Inversa does is we take invasive species that are destroying ecosystems and we turn them into high-grade leather.
Invasive species create just a massive amount of environmental and economic damage. They particularly hit rural, impoverished communities. In order for something to be sustainable in our mind, it actually needs to go beyond what's accepted and do something good for the planet. I've been a scuba diver for 10 years, diving in the Caribbean and throughout the Atlantic. You kind of watch the degradation of the coral reefs year after year due to this lionfish. And at one point we linked up and decided we needed to do something about it. And here we are.
Inversa goes beyond sustainable. The current definition of sustainability is just doing less damage. That's not sustainable, it's just doing less bad. We want to take it so much further than that.
Fundamentally, it's about reviving ecosystems. It's about bringing life back into regions that have been destroyed by invasive predators of all types. We started with the lionfish, it's invasive in the Caribbean. We work with the python, it's invasive throughout the Everglades. And we work with the dragonfin, and it's invasive throughout freshwater ecosystems from the Great Lakes all the way down to the Gulf of Mexico.
The industry as a whole, it's not been a lack of awareness. They've wanted to do better. There's just been a lack of solutions in place. And they've made steps in the right direction. There have been vegan leathers. There have been recycled leathers. These are all great. They move in the right direction. Now, for the first time, we have leather that has a positive impact on ecosystems. And that's exciting.
We're building a materials platform based on invasive species. We're just getting started. We started with the lionfish. We now have added a couple of other solutions, and we're going to keep growing and increasing our offerings to brands to maximize their choice and what materials they want to use and how they want to save the planet. It's simple. It's leather that revives ecosystems. We're letting fashion be the hero.
It's exciting, it's impressive, and something you're only going to see on The Look TV. We'll be right back.
Be on The Look, and we're excited to share a little bit more of our story. So Inversa is a materials company that takes invasive species and turns it into high-grade leather for the fashion industry.
Awesome. And Arav, can you tell me what was your guys' idea behind this? How did it get started?
Yeah, it got started. I mean, mostly we've all been scuba divers, and scuba diving for 10 years out in the Caribbean. You sort of watch. We got frustrated with just watching what was happening to our coral reefs, what was happening to biodiversity, what was happening with the loss of life and the bleaching that occurs, and we wanted to do something about it. And one of my academic background is in material science, and brought these two loves together in the form of a gorgeous leather that we offer to the fashion industry. And that's kind of where we got started.
And I know you really started with lionfish, then got into python and carp. all invasive species throughout North America and certainly the Caribbean as well. What brought you to those specific species?
Yeah. Well, yeah, as you mentioned, we started with the lionfish and just realized how much the fashion industry and luxury wanted to do something positive for the planet. And yes, it expanded into two other species. We now work with all three. And what brought us there is we like to work with the worst of the worst invasive species. The ones where they're so pervasive, they're so problematic that even governments, nonprofits, conservation communities, they're all looking for solutions. And ours is we just connect these problems with the fashion industry and their desire to do good, their desire to be positive, their desire to influence good change. And it's the consumer is one of the most scalable, powerful forces on the planet. And when you have a problem as wide and pervasive and dispersed as these established invasions like python, like carp, like lionfish, no one else is up for the challenge outside of the consumer.
Can you tell me, sorry, when you first saw this problem, these species, what did you see that they were doing to, the ocean, the planet? Kind of just tell me, like, what was the problem that they were creating?
Yeah, so these invasive species are those that have been brought from from their native territory into an area where they're not recognized as prey, and their prey species don't recognize them as a threat. And so as a consequence, they're able to proliferate rapidly and effectively outconsume, outcompete, and predate their way into basically overwhelming the very delicate food, the very delicate pyramid that all these ecosystems sit on top of. And so if you look at lionfish, for example, they overeat and consume 79% of all native fish on any coral reef they touch in an invaded territory. The carp has overconsumed to be about 90% of the biomass of all freshwater ecosystems. And the python has eaten 90 to 99% of all small mammals out of the Everglades wetlands. And so they create such colossal damage. And kind of everyone's for the last 20 years have been saying we need to do something, and we haven't really known what to do, and until we came around and brought this solution forward, and people have been very excited.
And Henry, what about the marketing? I mean, this is very interesting. We talk about sustainability, we talk about education. How do you get the word out about the marketing and educating people that, this is all right? Lionfish, I know they are somewhat poisonous and whatever, but you can eat them. They taste like chicken, I think. And obviously the skin, they're so beautiful. But what about the people? Oh, they look beautiful. I don't want to touch them. And, I don't want to hurt, another animal and so forth. But what about the marketing, education to get people to know that it's all right? They are invasive species and you could wear this and you could eat it. How do you get that out to your demographics?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think so much of this is about education and about education of invasive species. And one thing we like to talk about is not just being sustainable, which means keeping the status quo, but being regenerative, right? And in this case, it's a great example and model of when you buy a bag made out of lionfish or made out of python leather from the Everglades, that purchase is going towards removing something that is actively harming an ecosystem, right? And now when we have a bunch of that happening, we're removing something that's actively destroying it, and nature is really, really resilient, and it comes back when you allow it to. So it's doing things like this and really spreading the message, working with our brand partners on those educational pieces, and really empowering the consumer to do something positive for something that's a huge issue, right? Invasive species and cause 60% of extinctions. They cause $423 billion of damage globally, and global wildlife populations have reduced since 1970 by 69%. It's an enormous issue.
Welcome back to The Look TV. Everything retail, fashion, and beauty. I'm Dr. Andrew Bernstein, also known as Dr. Fashion, and I'm with Dean Cesar Centalo, the Dean of the College of Communications and Design at Lynn University in Boca Raton, Florida. Dean Santello, thank you so much for being on the show. We just had the Lynn Fashion Showcase, one of the most creative and innovative fashion design showcases anywhere in the world. Yes. It's all about sustainability. Dean, could you walk us through the show, how it came about, what's it about, and why this year was one of the most incredible fashion shows in Boca Raton and, for that matter, in the U.S.?
Sure. Well, thank you, Dr. Bernstein, for that introduction. So this year we basically wanted to, every year we're trying to create like a new theme, a new excitement about the Lynn Fashion Showcase. And to its core, in Lynn's DNA, the United Nations Sustainability Goals is deep-rooted in there. And after speaking to leadership, we felt that sustainability was going to drive this year's Lynn Fashion Showcase. And also reaching out with our partners. A lot of their mission statements already include SDGs in their mission statements. So we felt that this definitely has to be part of LFS's DNA for the foreseeable future. And Lynn is already a pioneer at that. So in some of our meetings, especially with Miami-Dade, one of the professors, Carlos Rico, in a conversation with Roberto Cadilli and myself, he mentioned that only 1% of all post-consumer textiles are recycled into new clothing. And we basically had to stop him right there and say, excuse me, only 1%? So several weeks after that, in my head, the idea started fermenting, and I basically came up with this concept, we are the 1%. And so people think negatively of, oh, the 1%, right? But we're kind of turning it on its head, and we're saying, no. Lynn is that 1% that's moving in the direction of sustainability when it comes to repurposing fabric, textiles.
Give our viewers, our Look viewers, a little bit of a sensory perception of, since they weren't there, of what happens as you walk in to go up to the second floor, sitting down for this incredible fashion show.
Sure. So I don't know if you all know this, but I've been a collage artist for, right? What better to go with sustainability than collage? And so from the moment you walk in, we wanted to give people a special experience as to what's going on at Lynn University and what's going on with the Lynn Fashion Showcase. From the moment you walk in, it tells the story of how sustainability happened to Lynn University's DNA mission with regards to sustainable development goals. So the actual balls are constructed from vinyl stickers. Some of it is from recycled from previous fashion shows, which is really cool. So instead of throwing the banners away from previous years, we're actually using it as decoration for the fountains. And then it also tells a story about what happened this year as far as our partnership. We've converted the lobby into basically a museum / gallery. The name of the show is called Repurposeful, right? And it's about upcycling materials and making them even greater now. And so we did a 360 on that exhibition as well. And so Ocean Soul is, it's basically they take all these sandals that are washed up on the coast of Africa. A lot of those sandals are washed up they come from India. They take those, they compress them, they make them into one big block, and they carve them into animals. So it turns out that they actually have a gallery I believe in Jacksonville, and I reached out to them, and they sent us a bunch of sculptures. So really 50 students working behind the scenes from the College of Business Management and the College of Communication and Design.
It's going to be bigger, better, I don't know how,
right.
But some ideas, what you'll be doing to cap this?
So actually today I posted on LinkedIn, and I said that the Lynn Fashion Showcase is one of the, if not the premier fashion event in Palm Beach County. And 50 students working behind the scenes from the College of Business Management and the College of Communication and Design.
Me to just start working on figuring out how I can make bags out of all the clothing that I was either going to throw away or donate, and the clothes weren't going to even get to be put on the rack again, and all the clothes that I was being given, because I get a lot of hand-me-downs from family members because my family is huge. And I started by making one bag out of a skirt that I loved, and then someone saw it and they liked it, and so I started making another bag and another bag, and that's how Nabia's Second Life bags and accessories came to be.
So this second life, I love it. Nabia's second life and giving purpose and sustainability new life. We know so much of this goes into landfills. It goes out in the ocean, it's dumped. And it is really an eyesore for all of us. We don't have the space. We don't have the dump sites. We don't have the ocean fills for this as well. So we know your background, what brought you into this, why it's so important to you. What can you do to educate the young audience we have on the look, and everybody for that matter, to tell them why this is important and why you are the change maker of the future doing this? You told us some of it, but really, why is it so important to you? And how can you change the minds of so many people who love fast fashion, who go out to Zara and say, I love this, I gotta have it, and then after one or two tries or wears, they throw it away? What can you do about it? It's so important. You're the next generation. You're the next consumer. You're the next designer. You're next entrepreneur. You're the one we're looking to for answers. Sorry to put you on the spot, Nabia. You're the one, right? Throw you under the bus, put you on the spot. But it's so important. What can you tell to the audience who really might not know about this? They've heard about it. They know the problem. So what's the solution?
Well, to answer the first part of the question, my why as to why I'm doing this is the best way to answer it I could think is why not?
Today we're honored to have Marte Cáceres, the co-founder of Deserto in Mexico. Deserto is one of the leading companies dealing with sustainability in fashion and textiles. Just think, working with cactus, something we think of those prickly pears and prickly cactus in the desert in South America, in Mexico, Arizona, California. We stay away from them. But Deserto is going to them because the cactus is bringing us sustainability. And they are bringing us vegan imitation leather that is used in so many products today, so many names like Hublot, Mercedes-Benz, Boatman shoes, and so many others. So Marte, we want to welcome you to The Look today. Thank you so much for being with us.
Hi, Andrew. Thank you so much for the invitation. I'm more happy to talk about all the story and our materials.
So getting into the deep dive on Deserto, could you tell us a little bit about, I know this is a family business. You are the co-founder. Could you tell us how Deserto started? What was the inspiration? A little bit about that. And what makes Deserto such a leading source for sustainability, not only in cactus, but really with what you are doing throughout Mexico, South America, and the world, how you're changing sustainability for textiles and fashion and accessories throughout the world?
Okay, it's a very long story, but I will try to make it a little bit
We'll
short.
get the limited edition here on The Look.
Well, I'll start in 2019 when I met my business partner, Adrian Lopez. We were in Taiwan for different purposes. I was studying Chinese, and my partner, he was doing his degree in economics, and we met in a bar in Taiwan. And a friend in common introduced each other's, and then we figured out that we were born in the same day, same month, and same year. Just 1 hour difference. And just because of that, we became very, very good friends in Taiwan. After 2 years there, I came back to Mexico, and Adriana spent more than 6 years in Taiwan. Then, when I came back to Mexico, I started working in fashion industry in one of the biggest fast fashion brands in Mexico, in bags, accessories, and watch straps. And all the production was based in China, Asia. So I was in charge of all the communication of the collections between Asia and Mexico for the importation and distribution in Mexico. And then I was working also in the aloe vera industry. I was working with plants in using these fabrics, these fibers from the aloe vera to transform them into byproducts such as creams and the cosmetics, perfumes, etc. And in the other part of the world, Adrian, my business partner, he was working in the development of new materials of synthetics, and he was also working in automotive, also with synthetics and leather. So we were both working in different countries and different areas and industries, but we were both using leather and synthetics. So once we met again in Mexico in 2015, something like that, 2016, we start talking and 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 talking about our interested about what we were doing, and I was working that I love the fashion industry, and he told me that he loves the automotive industry, but there was one thing in common, that we were not happy with all the contamination that was involved in this industry, all the waste accumulation, all the water use, all the land use change, all the chemicals used in the processes. So there were many things that we were not happy with the materials. So we start thinking and say, hey, so if we like this industry that much, why don't we do something for it? So that's why we start to think, how can we help this industry to keep growing, I mean, high as it is, but in a greener way. So we started research and development. We took 3 years until we achieved, I mean, like the final formulation. But first we started with aloe vera, then we started with savila, then with cactus, and we ate with the family of cactus, which is the nopal. And the nopal is the symbol of the Mexican flag, is present in each state of Mexico, in all cities, everywhere. So we say, if we use this plant for and transform it into a material, this is going to be the real solution. Why? Because it's important to take into consideration all the feedstocks that we need to grow a plant. And cactus needs zero, zero. No water, no chemicals, no herbicides, no pesticides, no agrochemicals at all, no care. It grows alone, it's right by the sun. So we say, okay, this is the solution. So now how do we transform into the material? So that's why, so that's what the hard part, how we transform the cactus into the material. And we spent 3 years together inside of the laboratory with engineers, agrochemicals, agricultural team, nanotechnology team, Adrian, me, 3 years inside until we achieved the first version of Deserto in 2019, which was made for doing bags and accessories and all these things in the fashion industry.
Wow,
I went too much, but yeah, like this.
4 years. Marte, Deserto. How did you come up with the name? It's incredible. The desert, we know it is really with cactus, maybe having a cactus name, but how come Deserto? I love the name. What was the inspiration?
Well, the inspiration of Deserto, I mean, of course, was because a cactus, or, I mean, or nopal is a desertic plant. And in Spanish, we call it desierto. In English, we call it desert. And in Italian, we call it deserto, but with one S. So we're thinking, we want to make something like very aesthetic for the European market and American market. So we need to create a fusion between words, something from the desert, which is not desert like it is, because we cannot name it desert or desierto because we cannot. So we start thinking in different like combinations, and we end with Deserto with double S, like Italian and American language together. And yeah, I think it's a great name.
It's great. In fact, somebody said it sounds like the dessert of the desert. You can you can start with it. You can have your main course and your dessert. It's so incredible what you're doing. So, Marte, could you give us a day in the life of Deserto and that beautiful cactus plant? It takes no water. I mean, people can survive in the desert and finding desert and taking a little bit of that water and surviving for a good period of time.
It is important to start with the cultivations.
Yeah.
Because we need to choose a specific region in Mexico to select, the land where we're going to make the cultivation of the cactus. Because if we choose a right plant, then it's going to grow by nature 100% organic. So all the cultivations that we use in Zacatecas, Mexico are 100% organic, USDA. It's grown by nature. We don't use any water, and it takes only 8 months to 10 months for growing. So each 8 months, we do a harvest of all the acres of the cactus plant. We cut only the mature leaves of the plant, so the plant keeps growing. We're working with an idea which was just to improve the industry. And right now, we think that we are only the key, but somebody needs to take the key and use it.